It does look like we're going to have Rob Cygul, the man himself, in round one against Thomasz Zelazko? Is that how you, I don't want to, I'm going to butcher this name, I'm so sorry. But
Zelazko is my
Zelazko,
guess.
okay, yeah.
Apologies if we got it wrong. Please come see us.
I definitely messed it up. When I saw it, it was on a much smaller screen than we're looking at it now. I had a picture-in-picture, so I definitely had that messed up, so I apologize. Let's see, it looks like we have Bravo Starvo Show versus one of those matchups that we talked about here going to round one. The deck looking gray on Bravo Starvo Show, and that's Prism. And I'm interested in Bravo together.
Yeah, that is going to be the question. Every time we see a Bravo down there in the feature match area, what version of Bravo is it? What did Rob bring to the table here?
Speaking of what Rob brought to the table, take a look at those sleeves on that equipment. The Tolarian dropout, shout out to his YouTube channel and his own stuff here representing that Dragon Shield stuff. Pretty nice there. It's a nice mask, a nice shirt there, sir.
Yeah. And
then we got a nice little, what is that? We got a nice little team shirt for Thomas here as well. The names are inverted on the screen here. We'll get that fixed just as soon as possible. So it is going to be Rob playing Bravo at the top here and Thomas at the bottom. So let's see what flavor. I have to say, we can't see the bottom equipment here, but of each player. But it looks like we got a pretty traditional start from both of the players here.
Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary thus far from either side. You see Crown of Reflection, the choice of headpiece for Thomasz, and Rob just with a pretty standard Bravo set. Interesting to see Rampart of the Ram's Head. There's been constant debate, Rampart versus Bastion, but in Rob's case, going with the Rampart, and then a nice start here from Thomasz. Going to go ahead and fire off Genesis.
Yeah, we see the one of the openings that we see a lot from decks like Bravo, where just, hey, I'm going to move to Arsenal and pass here on turn one, because Rob didn't want to open the chain and have something like this happen where he attacks and the Genesis comes down. So now Rob actually can attack. If the Genesis was done at the end of his turn, he's still got an action point here, and it looks like that's what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, and look at this from Rob. It's a pitched Eye of Ophidia.
Yeah, a little stunting on the first round here. I haven't seen one of these in a list in a while.
I don't think I've ever seen one of these in Starvo. Of course, Eye of Ophidia, a Fabled, able to go ahead and opt one whenever you pitch it. So 3 resources headed Rob's way. Going to go ahead. Looks like just activating that Rampart of the Ram's Head to block Genesis attack. Of course, Genesis empowered by the Luminaris.
Looks like Thomas is going to clean it up here. Looks like he's going to Arsenal a card. I was going to say, I can barely see an Arsenal card. And it wouldn't be Starvo without the first turn attack being an actual activation of Starvo here.
Yahtzee, says Rob. Going to go ahead and reveal the 3 element classes, of course. That's going to give the next attack +2, dominate, and go again. Going to go ahead and fire off that Evergreen for a big 9 damage, is Rob.
Yeah, this is a red Evergreen, so this is going to be attacking in for 9 here. Like you said, go again. It's got dominate, so only 1 card can be blocked here. He does have that go again, so still get a chance to kind of clean up this Genesis as well at the end of the turn. It's going to be a very good opening attack here from Rob.
It's so critical for the Bravo player in this matchup to start off on the aggressive foot. If you're not pressuring life totals, it's really hard to find footholds in this matchup. And, you know, you're giving up a lot of your turns by controlling auras. And there you see Rob going to go ahead, send Winter's Wail after that Genesis. That's a lot of damage output that otherwise could have went to face. So it's really important to get those fuses and be able to pressure life totals as well.
Yeah, you see, like we said, the life total is just a little inverted here. We're going to get that fixed as soon as possible, but Rob's still at 40. We got our Prism player down to 31, taking that 9 off that Evergreen, and that Genesis got cleaned up. We're going to tick that Tunic up to 2 here. Good thing to remember that all the time. It looks like we're going to have an Ode to Wrath get put into play here, and these are some beautiful cards from both of these players. It looks like we got cold foils everywhere.
Of course, Prism, very unique in terms of flesh and blood decks. It plays to the arena a lot more than most. These very, very powerful auras gain kind of a persistent advantage. Flesh and Blood's a game very much about the back and forth of combat. I attack, you block, you attack, I block. That's how most decks play out. Prism throws that aside, and it goes ahead and tries to establish this sort of death by 1,000 cuts. It's got these auras. Luminaris turns them in to aggression at the same time. So while you're defending, you're also pressuring your opponent, and it can just lead to an insurmountable edge for the Prism player.
Ode to Wrath, one of the really good ones here as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, push through a lot of damage for the Prism player.
Looks like this is going to be a haze bending in behind the Ode to Wrath as well.
Also cold foil. These players are not messing around here.
It's the Pro Tour. You got to bring out the big guns.
Absolutely. Love to see it. Love to see the flare.
You know, Rob definitely known for it. You got to love when his opponent's bringing it just as much. So it looks like Rob, we're 2 for 2 here.
Round 2, Bravo going to go ahead and activate. +2, dominate, go again.
Just a well-built deck.
Nothing wrong with just building to maximize to this plan. And that's what we've seen so far. You see all of the break grounds. You see all the evergreens, not skimping on those ratios whatsoever. Also outputting some damage. I don't have a sense of exactly what flavor of Bravo Rob is yet. We're going to get deck lists soon, and I'll be able to get a little bit more clarity. Here's the first counterpunch, though, from the side of Thomasz. It's going to be a red unmovable. Of course, it's going to be a big block, soaking up most of that break ground damage.
Yeah, it does look like we're going to follow this up with a Winter's Wail at the Haze Bending. The Haze Bending is going to go away.
Really important play here from Rob. Going to go ahead and extend the combat chain, get more action points, plays Blink, and that's going to allow him to clear up a second aura. Very important for the Bravo player.
How important is that actually from the Bravo side, making sure to keep those auras off the table?
Look, it depends, Tenon. It depends a lot on how you're built. I know there are Bravos out there that can afford to ignore that to some extent because they push damage so hard. They are doing things like you mentioned, like Pummel, like Earthlore Surge, and that makes them more able to race the Prism players and just kill them before they get set up. However, if you're not that aggressive, you have to make sure you're mitigating those auras or they will overwhelm you.
Especially when you're seeing something like Unmovable come out, does it make it even more important to control that board?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It tells you what the Prism player is up to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking about what they're up to, Rob here, no Starvo activation this turn, but this is still a very large attack from a Spinal Crush.
Yeah, Spinal Crush important in this matchup. Takes away Go Again from everything on a recipient's next turn if it deals 4 or more damage. So what that means is, you know, Prism's good at getting wide. When we say getting wide, we're making a lot of attacks on the back of that Luminaris. That goes away if Spinal Crush connects. So this is going to demand some kind of response from Thomasz if he wants to retain the ability to do things on his turn.
Yeah, this is one that, you know, a D-React to be really good here, be able to soak up some of this damage. Spinal Crush, that ability is going to trigger if it has its crush effect, meaning if it deals at least 4 or more damage to the hero. So if he can soak up at least 6 of this, he'll be able to attack multiple turns next turn, the Prism player will. So let's see what he's got lined up here. It does look like he's going to play something, another Unmovable from Arsenal here.
And look, this is the second flavor of Unmovable we've seen. We've seen red Unmovable. This is yellow Unmovable. And I think that's really telling because for a long time, the Prism decks shifted to mostly just red Unmovable. They're saying for this event, it's important they have more D-Reacts. I mentioned a lot of folks going to the Fate Foreseen look again. We're seeing Thomasz do something a little bit different here. Going to go ahead and bring in yellow Unmovable to counter, to combine with that red Unmovable.
Yeah, this looks like a Shimmers of Silver.
Yep, Shimmers of Silver going to be played.
Get to the board for our Prism player here, just relentlessly adding an aura or 2 every turn so far. Trying to get that, the play pattern you've talked about. They want to go wide here. They want to get as many things in play as possible. Is that the main way that they're beating Bravo in these matchups?
For the most part, yeah. They also have to play against just getting blown out by these huge turns that Bravo is capable of having. Of course, things like Pulverize, not going to see as much play in the absence of Awakening. And it's weird how the absence of Awakening has affected this matchup. There's a lot of players who leaned on Awakening. We saw folks like D-Rude leverage it. Oh, I want to stop and talk about this for a second, though. We're seeing a big play here from Rob. This is exposed to the elements. This is going to go ahead and try and take care of one of those equipments over on Tomasz's side.
Yeah, so he exposed the elements, and he's going to have the full fusion here. That's Earth and Ice. So what's going to happen here is he's going to put a -1 counter on one of the equipment on the other side. And it looks like he's going to go ahead and pay for the other one as well, using that Tunic counter.
Yes.
This was a Crown of Seeds activation as well. Our first one of the tournament. It won't be our last. If you're playing Starvo or watching Starvo, get ready to see this Crown of Seeds get activated a lot. It's one of the most powerful things you could be doing. And look, he's still got left over after all this. He's got a Starvo activation. What a great hand from Rob here.
Yeah, damage output a little low. We are only swinging with the blue break ground here, so that's going to be 7. Go again, dominate. But like I said, it's just important to keep forward momentum. Get damage out there. We know there's 1 card left in Rob's hand, going to be able to clean up that Shimmers of Silver, should he choose, or possibly make an Arsenal. I expect probably want to go ahead and keep the trend of keeping those auras off the arena.
Absolutely. It does look like we got a block from, was that a War Tune Herald here? So a block for 3. Can soak up some of the damage. It does look like the Winter's Wail is going to go ahead and take the Shimmers of Silver. And if you're on Rob's side here, how are you feeling about the way this game has progressed so far?
It's gone well. You know, Rob doing a great job controlling those auras, keeping the arena completely clear. You could ask for a little bit more damage output. You kind of wish some of your big attacks lined up with the Bravo turn. Something like Spinal Crush getting through with a Dominate is a really big deal. But for the most part, a lot of fusions thus far from Rob, and I think the game plan is going according to schedule.
Yeah, and we got an attack from War Tune Heroes here. I want to kind of point out what's in that pitch zone. That's another yellow unmovable. We've already seen, multiple of every color pretty much. There's going to be a ton of D-Reacts in this deck.
It looks like that War Tune Herald is going to hit, going to make its way to Prism Soul, giving a little bit more just juice to the Prism plan, able to make a Spectral Shield at instant speed. That's really important for Prism, not only to go ahead and make that Spectral Shield, but to get a yellow pitch into the pitch zone as well.
Oh, here we go. Huge deck.
Swing from Rob.
We have a Starvo activation revealing 2 cards because one of these is a Pulse, which counts as 2 of those elements. They're going to have an Oaken Old with the Pulse revealing both Earth and Ice Fusion. So this is going to be double synced up, like I like to say. So it's going to have 9 power from Starvo with Go Again and Dominate. But then from its own ability, it's going to have even 2 more. So this is an 11 power Oaken Old. In my opinion, this is the best attack you can do in the game.
Agreed. Agreed 100%. A fused Oaken Old, nothing competes with it. Because not only are you going to go ahead and push that 11 Dominate damage, you're also going to eat 2 random cards from your opponent's hand. You basically consume their next turn every time you hit with Oaken Olds. That in and of itself would be great. But it coming with 11 damage too is it goes to messed up, quite frankly. And we have to see, is there enough on Thomas's side to put together a defense of this? You really want your unmovables in this spot because you are so limited, particularly in the arsenal. And you see Thomas going to go ahead and check that arsenal. Is there something there that enables him to prevent this Oaken Old hit?
Does look like sink below. Yeah, so this is a D-React. So this is soaking up, what, about 5 so far?
Yeah, 5 so far. Do we have that last D-React in the arsenal zone able to soak up this Oaken Old? Looks like no. Well, maybe not. That's the Sink Below card going to the bottom.
Maybe we could find one.
Well, it's got to come from the arsenal at this point because Sink Below is from hand. So that's going to be the 1 card played for Dominate. And it's Soul Shield from the arsenal. How much are we soaking up here?
I think this is 11, right? Soul Shield, it's the yellow one. I think that's 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, so that would be 11, so is that all of it? And then this does look like we have a cold 4 coming through, so an Icy Hammer coming through as well at the end of the turn.
Yeah, and I think, Thomas was tested here. I think stood up to the test. Had the right answers at the right time to go ahead and prevent the just massive damage from that Oaken Old.
Nice token here, a little Matthew Dilk sighting. Shout out to Matthew Dilks if you're at home watching, or I think he might even be here this weekend. Love you, buddy. But I want to point out how big of an attack this was, even though it didn't hit. This is what you're talking about, the effect it has on the game, right? Yeah, if it hit Thomas, he'd lose a bunch of cards, but he, in fact, still lost those cards, right, while having to give up a piece of equipment and multiple cards from his hand and arsenal.
Absolutely. Oaken Old puts you in a no-win situation. It's not like Thomas really came out super well in that exchange. It just didn't go as poorly as it could have, and that life total getting a little bit of padding, which is going to be so important as this game moves on. But, Tannen, you asked me before, if I'm Rob, how do I feel about how this game is going? It just keeps getting better and better. And you see another Starvo activation here for Rob. We're going to go ahead, again, just a blue Evergreen. So we're only going to be pushing a smaller amount of damage, 7 here to start with. But we're doing it. This is what you need to set up turn after turn to pressure these Prism players. Yeah,
we saw a Channel Link Frigid, the first one that we've seen so far today, get shown here as well. So it's something that could possibly be used as well here. I was going to say, he has, 2 cards off his hand, so he could possibly get that in play to kind of mess up the Prism player's turns for the rest of the couple of turns. Or you can even start, keep attacking Winter's Wheel because the life totals are getting pretty low. The Prism player is down to 15. You're starting to see the finish line.
I agree. I think the damage output has been there thus far for Rob. And you reach this point as the Starvo player against Prism. It's been so critical for Rob to keep the arena clean of those auras thus far. Things change, though. At some point, you go, okay, I have the Prism low enough, or I can start to go after them. And maybe it's something like a Pulse of Volthaven that's going to enable a Winter's Wail for a big 8 attack here that really signifies the turning of the tides and Rob shifting to, I'm going to end this game.
A play that I actually like a lot in this deck. A lot of people like to hold the pulses to kind of make sure you reveal to Starvo, but it's like you said, at some point you turn the corner, you see the finish line, you want to push for that end, and this is going to make an 8 power Winter's Wail that, on hit gives that ice, gives that frostbite, but also this is half of Thomas's remaining life total. He's got an arsenal and he's got a bunch of cards to say, but he just took the damage before this. This means he actually wants the cards in his hand. So this is a big question from Rob here. It's like, how are you going to soak up this much damage? How are you going to deal with this? Are you just going to take this as well? to try to move the game back to get some tempo on your side. If that's the case, then I'm okay with it because now you're going to be at a very low life total.
Yeah, and when you're an experienced player like Rob, you pick up on those things, right? The fact that Thomasz was willing to soak the damage there means there's something he's looking to come back with. And you see a huge pause here trying to figure out, okay, now, how much do I have to protect my life total? How much do I have to worry about that Frostbite token really throwing off what I intended to do on my turn? And you see a mid-sized block here, starting with the War Tune Herald, but there's some follow-up. Soul Shield going to come down, block this entire 8.
And honestly, I like Thomas trying to find a spot for this here. There's a lot of people from this spot they play not to lose, and you see him actually playing to find a way to win the game.
Agreed. Critical way to play here from Thomasz. You have to move forward. Otherwise, eventually Starvo will just bury you under these activations. And still doing a decent job. Gave up a lot of hand there, but had the blue aura, Haze Bending going to come down. One of the better blue auras, I would say.
Absolutely. So Haze Bending's going to make it in here. Now Rob dealing with this. He's got a full hand here. He's got an arsenal. He's got 3 counters on that tunic, and he's got that crown sitting there ready to go. These are the turns that dreams are made of when you're Starvo. This is the fully powered going into my next turn here. He can filter a little bit if he wants here, help prevent some of this damage, and then maybe set up one of those big turns here later in the game, because you got to believe all of the dominated attacks from here on out are going to be the biggest problem.
Yeah, and that was what Rob was debating, trying to figure out if he wanted to set up a 5-card hand. I assume we're still in the end. Yes, we were in the end of Thomas's turn. So what Rob is doing there, using the Tunic to activate Crown of Seeds, that basically adds a free card to hand. Rob trying to find that Bravo fusion, looks like with a big Spinal Crush lined up. So if he found it, this will be a big output. But I think
there's an Oaken Old as well in here.
Yeah, but the problem is there's no fusion here. I think we're looking at 2 ice cards and an Earth card, though. So if there is an Oaken Old, that could be some output. It's going to be Spinal Crush.
I think he's going to tuck away this Oaken Old for the next turn as well. So I believe that was a Winter's Bite that got played, and then into a giant Spinal Crush here going at our Prism player.
Yeah, Winter's Bite going to take a card out of hand. We saw Spinal Crush before. If this does 4 or more damage, going to take away access to Go Again from Thomasz. Honestly, the fear at this point is you're usually worried about Spinal Crushes on hit. Eat your next turn. Not anymore if you're Thomasz. You're worried about your life total. 15 is precarious. You eat any portion of this sizable 9, things start to get real uncertain, and you're just forced to commit defensive resources on every turn. Makes it really hard to turn the corner on the Prism side.
Absolutely. So you see Thomasz taking his time here, really, really thinking about how do I do that here, and that's what he's thinking about here. He's not thinking about, oh, what's my best block. That's not the only thing he's thinking about. It's like, how do I win from here? And we talked about this a little bit. He's trying to find a way to actually get himself back in this game, because surviving is not enough at this point.
No, and that's one of the beautiful things about the game of Flesh and Blood. Your defense leads directly into your offense. How much you're choosing to commit 2 blocks on this turn dictates what you will be able to do on your next turn. And Flesh and Blood is this beautiful balancing act you're always playing. How much offensive output can I get? How much defensive output can I get? How much do I have to plan for what my opponent's going to do on their next turn? And speaking of that, you see Rob with still some very valuable resources left. None of the blocking done from the equipment thus far. Time skippers ready to go. A key piece of the Prism matchup. It lets you get an extra action point on a big turn, possibly deal some damage and clean up an aura if you have to. So a lot of resources left for Rob. I think the game has gone exactly how Rob would want it to go thus far.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to get a block here from a Miraging Metamorph. So this is blocking for, I believe, 3. So the crush effect is going to hit if this is the only block.
Yeah, and I think that's okay if you're Thomasz. Like I said, it's way more about just preserving life totals, and then I expect probably 1 action from Thomasz when we head to the turn, and then being okay with it. And there you see Genesis is going to be that action. That's fine. That's a fine setup for the end of the turn, and now we head into the next turn. Maybe there's a second aura to go ahead and deploy. So if you start getting to 3 auras, that's where things start getting problematic.
This is the beginning of the turnaround, is what you're saying.
It's trying to be. It's trying to be. The problem is the life total is so low for Thomasz, so that leaves him very vulnerable. But if you're able to load up some auras, make a Spectral Shield, possibly you can start turning things in your favor. And there are powerful auras out there right now. There is the Genesis, making extra resources. There is Haze Bending, adding extra Spectral Shields. And you see the Spectral Shields starting to pile up. Is this the moment where Thomasz has turned the corner? Really depends what Rob fires back with here.
Yeah, Rob's going to have a large hand here. And
Fusion time.
Speaking of a large hand, this is going to be a large attack behind it. And here's that Oaken Old, and it's going to be double fused.
Beautifully played by Rob, saving that Oaken Old for this spot. 11 dominate damage heading the way of Thomasz.
Who's at 9, by the way.
Yeah, has to find good defense here. There are those Spectral Shields eating a bit of damage, but there's not a lot of block left over on Thomas's side. There's those Phantasmal Footsteps, which would be giving up forever, cost you a resource. There's Tunic, which only blocks for 1, has Blade Break, so only gets to make that block 1 time. Really, really tough spot here for Thomas. Is there another D-React available that can soak up some of this damage? But that's still going to leave Thomas with no hand if you can't find a full block for this Oakenolt's 11 damage. Almost impossible without an Arsenal Tannin.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if we can figure it out. Does he have that much-needed defense reaction here? Would help him out a lot in not having to give up his entire hand here this turn, but yeah, you've got to pay the piper here. And Oakenold asks for multiple cards every time, so it looks like we've got at least 1 block, got the Spectral Shields.
Yep.
So it looks like I think 1 card's going to be left over in Thomas's hand when this is all said and done.
That's correct, and also 6 damage heading Thomas's way. Precarious 3, meaning those hammer attacks going to be lethal from this point. Once that happens, so hard to recover because Rob just has lethal presented on every single turn for the rest of the game and is facing almost no threat at this point.
Oh, this is actually going to be a big attack.
Yeah, just going to push damage here instead of trying to get that Frosty 4. And I like it. 7 damage headed the way of Thomas. Has to find more blocks.
And of that body language, it doesn't look like it's going to be good.
Yeah, and that's just going to get the fist bump. And Rob Cygul taking down the first match ever in Flesh and Blood Pro Tour history.